العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آل حق قدره ومقدار العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We've been talking for the last few weeks regarding barakah, having blessings in our times, in our places, and we said there's barakah even in people. And this is why it's so important that you sit with good people, especially nowadays, that you sit with good people, people who will take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was a sheikh, and probably one of the greatest sheikhs in this century, by the name of Shaykh Badr din Hassani. Badr din Hassani. What's his name? Badr din Hassani, from Damascus. And he was huge, great imam. He memorized the Quran, he memorized Bukhari and Muslim and so on. Great imam. And in his gatherings, you will see great people in his gatherings. Amongst the people in the gatherings were ulama. The shuyukh will be there in his gatherings. So you have the ulama, the people like students of knowledge, and then you have the awam, normal people, alhamdulillah. And there was one man, one of his students, he was always there, right at the front. He's always there. Studious, always there, seeking knowledge. So one day the sheikh was giving a dars, and it was ram-packed. And this man came right at the back. And he came and he sat right at the back. The sheikh looked at him and called him over. He said, come. So the man comes through the crowd. He comes in and he sits next to the sheikh. And the sheikh asks him, Kif halakum, and how are you? And the man replies back to him. Now this man sitting right here, the student for years who's been there, something sparks off in his heart. Who is this man? This man is never, the sheikh has never asked me to come next to him. Who is this man? The next day, the same thing happens. Big ijtima, big gathering. The ulama, the people, and this man comes again, sits right at the back. The sheikh sees him, he calls him over. So when he comes over, he says, sit next to me. Kif halakum, how are you? Now this man who's sitting over here, he's now starting to burn inside. Who is this man? Who is this man? He's burning inside. So then, on the third day, this time, coffee is being served. Qawa. So they're giving coffee to people. So the coffee goes to the sheikh Badruddin. The man gives the coffee to the sheikh. And so the sheikh turns around and gives it to this man. This student sitting over here, he's now fuming inside. Like, why is this thing? So when he gives the coffee to this man gives the coffee to that man, student. He turns around and he goes, Hada laka, this is for you. And Shaykh Badruddin smiled at this. The Shaykh Badruddin said to the student, he said, when you sit with the kings, mind your hands. Because if you place your hand in the wrong place, you may have them chopped off. We sit with the ulama, mind your tongue. Because they know where you're coming from. But if you sit with the saints or the awliya, mind your hearts. Alhamdulillah, today again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us again to have our Shaykh Ahmed Saad. May Allah preserve him and protect him. May we benefit from him. We said last time, huwa min ahli bayt Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's from the family of the Prophet alayhi salatu wa salam. This is a great ni'mah. That we're sitting in Ramadan, sitting with a child of the Prophet alayhi salatu wa salam. So now we're going to go to the Shaykh inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah, ahli habibi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام. الحمد لله على نعمة الإيمان. الحمد لله على نعمة القرآن والحمد لله على نعمة النبي العدنان. اللهم إنا نسألك ونحن أحوج ما نكون إليك وأنت أغنى ما تكون عنا. نسألك اللهم في هذه الساعة عطفا ولطفا وبركة وهدى ونورا. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذ بك منه عبدك ونبيك سيدنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم إنا نسألك فعل الخيرات وترك المنكرات وحب المساكين، وإن أردت بالناس فتنة فاقبضنا إليك غير مفتونين. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا، وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا، وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا، واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير، واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر، وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة يا كريم. ثم أما بعد. One of the famous narrators of Qira'at are basically the different modes, different recitations of the Quran that have been narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the great people, great scholars who became a reference in communicating Qira'at to us, and one of the modes is being ascribed to him, it's named after him, not because he has invented it, but because he's narrated it, is a man called Imam Nafi'. And Imam Nafi' radiallahu ta'ala an, he's not a tabi'i, he's not from the tabi'in, but he's from tabi'in. He took his qira'ah from a man called Abu Ja'far Yazid ibn al-Qa'qa', and Abu Ja'far Yazid ibn al-Qa'qa' took his qira'ah from two tabi'in. One of them is called Zirr ibn Hubaysh and the other is called Shayba ibn Nisah. And these two, Shayba ibn Nisah and Zirr ibn Hubaysh, they both took from Sayyidina Abu Huraira and Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, who both took from other Sahaba, Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the five Sahaba who are known to be the references of all the Qira'ah of the Quran. The big five, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Zayd ibn Thabit, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Uthman ibn Affan. Imam Nafi' al-Madani, rahimahullah, who was actually originally not from Al-Madinah. He was originally from the land of Faris, from the land of what we know nowadays as Iran, or the Persian Empire in those days. And he was not a fair-skinned person. He was a very dark-skinned person. He had very nice features though. Very, very pleasant and very attractive and charming features. Very, very nice personality. He had an aura about him. Imam Nafi', after learning Qira'at from his teacher, Abu Ja'far Yazid ibn al-Qa'qa', who also one of the narrators of Qira'at and is very, very well known, he sat teaching in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ Qira'ah for 60 years, non-stop. 60 years. So they said to him, what are you doing here? You're teaching for free. He was teaching Quran for free. And he was so diligent in teaching and so diligent in not receiving anything in return of teaching the Quran, that one day they narrate that about him. They said that one day he dropped something in a well. And he went down the well to pick up what he dropped. When he was coming out, he needed a hand. Someone just to stretch his hand and to take him out. So he said, can someone give me a hand, please? And someone stretched his hand to take him out. He said, who is that? He said, I'm so and so. He said, oh, you are our student? He said, yes. He said, take your hand away. I don't even need that help from you. I don't want that help from you. He said, send me someone else who is not learning with me. Wow. So he was so cautious about what is being given to him, right? Even from his students, that he didn't even want a helping hand from him. Anyway, they said to him, what has inspired you to sit and teach here? Teach next to one of the pillars in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ for 60 years. He said one hadith that I read, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you is the one who recites Quran and the one who teaches Quran and the one who learns Quran. And by the way, this man, Nafi', is different from another Nafi'. Another Nafi' known to the scholars of hadith in something what we call the golden chain. Nafi' an Salim an Abdullah bin Umar. Nafi' from Salim, the freed slave of Abdullah bin Umar, from Abdullah bin Umar. That's a very well-known chain in hadith. Nafi' an Salim an Abdullah bin Umar. Malik an Nafi' an Salim an Abdullah bin Umar. This is called the golden chain. And if they add to it a Shafi'i, so a Shafi'i from Salim, actually a Shafi'i from Malik, from Salim, from Nafi', from Salim, from Abdullah ibn Umar, they call it the diamond chain. Imam ibn Subki rahimahullah fi tabaqat shafi'iyya, he mentions that this is called the diamond chain. Anyway, Imam Nafi' rahimahullah ta'ala, so this is a Nafi' and this is another Nafi'. The Nafi' that we're talking about, this Imam of Qira'at, he got married to a woman who had a child from a previous marriage. So he looked after this child, his stepson, looked after him, and he started teaching him Quran. This woman was from the Roman Empire. So her son was originally from that background. And his name was Isa ibn Mina. Isa ibn Mina. It's a very, Isa, as you all know, is the name of Sayyidina Isa, Jesus. Right? Isa ibn Mina. And Mina is a very Coptic name as well. So that stepson, Isa ibn Mina, was known also by the nickname of Qalun. Qalun in the Roman language in those days meant good and strong. So he was known as Qalun, Isa ibn Mina. Qalun, the stepson of Nafi', who grew up under the supervision of this great man, started learning Quran from him. And he stayed in his company for 40 years, learning from him. I mean, not in his company, but in the company of him as a student for 40 years. And Qalun is known as Asam. Like he was deaf, he could not hear any sound. And when he used to teach people, he used to tell them, read to me in the narration or the recitation of Nafi' because I don't know anything apart from it. So he used to read, some narrations say he used to read the lips. Some other narrations say that Qalun was deaf and he could not hear the sound of trumpet, but when people read Quran to him, he was able to hear that. Only at that moment, his hearing is switched on, and right after that it's switched off. Right after that it's switched off. Just like another man, a famous Shafi'i scholar, Shaykh al-Islam, Abu Yahya Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, great Shafi'i scholar. He lived 102 years. He was born in 824, died in 926. Shaykh al-Islam Abu Yahya Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, at the age of 102, he was very fragile and very weak. And he was almost paralyzed. He could not stand up. But whenever the time of Salah comes, he had the power to stand up, pray standing up, do the Sunnah, and right after he loses his power and he collapses. Very, very strange. Whenever the Adhan, the Iqamah starts, it's as if there is some power coming into his body. He stands, he does his Salah, does his Sunnah, and right after he just collapses. So Qalun was something similar to that. Whenever the people recite Quran to him, he gets his hearing back. He hears that, and then it just switched off. He could not hear anything after that. Anyway, the reason why I'm telling this long story is this bit. Nafi' said to Qalun, after 40 years of learning from him, after 40 years, what are you going to learn more in Quran? Nothing, sah? He said to him, until when you're going to read to me? You should go and sit next to a pillar and let me send students to you. You've been in my company learning for 40 years. I don't want you to be in my company learning for 40. You are more than qualified. So there are some commentators on this incident, they said, Qalun did not have anything to learn more from Nafi' in terms of reading and recitation. But he wanted his company. He wanted his company. Al-Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Thabit, who died in 463, says that one of the students of Ahmad ibn Hanbal used to go to the gatherings of Ahmad ibn Hanbal reciting al-Musnad. Musnad of Ahmad is 28,000 hadiths. And he recited it over 12 years. And this incident is mentioned also by Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda in Safahat min Sabr al-Ulama. He said that person who went to Ahmad ibn Hanbal for 12 years, attending his gatherings, he said, اختلفت إلى ابن حنبل 12 سنة. I went to Ahmad ibn Hanbal for 12 years. ما كتبت عنه حديثا. I have not written a single hadith from him. He's going to the dars not to write hadiths. So they said to him, so what were you doing? What were you doing there? He said, أتأدب بالنظر إليه. Just looking and gazing at his face to learn adab from sitting with him. Just sitting in his gathering, looking at his face and learning from his character and learning from being in him. And that's why they said, that just by mentioning righteous people, not just by being with them, just by mentioning righteous people, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda as well mentions in his introduction to Risalatul Mustarshideen a statement from Makki ibn Abi Talib al-Qaysi. They said to him, بِأَيِّ نِيَّةٍ تَكْتُبُ الْحَدِيثِ. What is your intention when you write hadiths? He said, أَنَّنَا نَرْوِي أَنَّهُ عِنْدَ ذِكْرِ الصَّالِحِينَ تَتَنَزَّلُ الرَّحَمَاتِ. We narrate that when we mention righteous people, the mercy of Allah descends upon us. وَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ رَأْسُ الصَّالِحِينَ. And the Messenger ﷺ is the head of all righteous people. So by mentioning his name, the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will descend. With all this in mind, my brothers and sisters, the ulama have realized the importance of suhbah, the importance of being in the company of righteous people, in the company of learned people, in the company of those who remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Imam Abdul Rahman ibn Abdullah al-Faqih rahimahullah, the student of Imam al-Haddad, wrote in his Rashafat, and he said about the righteous people and being with the righteous people, he said, لَهُمْ مِنَ التَّقْوَى أَجَلُّ زِينَةً عِنْدَ لِقَاهُمْ تَنْزِلُ السَّكِينَةِ. The taqwa is their best adornment. Being in their company, calmness descends. وَتَحْصُلُ الْجَمْعِيَّةُ الْمُبِينَةُ وَتُجْذَبُ الْأَلْبَابُ بِانْفِعَالِ. That when you are in their company, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as if Allah is gathering you with Him. Allah is bringing you to Him. When you are in the company of righteous people, in the company of learned people, the people whose hearts are attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are reminded with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember one of the mashayikh in Azhar, he went to Bosnia when the problems in Bosnia were there. And he said something which is really interesting. He said, there are two things that remind people with the deen. The turban of a scholar and the minaret in the masjid. When people look at the minaret of the masjid, they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they look at the turban of the scholar, they remember the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is more than enough to admonish people who are doing something bad and stop them from doing something bad. You just dress as you are. I used to do that back in the days in Egypt. I would dress in my Azhari clothes and just go into a bus. As soon as I sit in the bus, if someone is smoking, he will throw his cigarette. If two young people, like a boy and a girl, are holding hands, they will astaghfirullah, who is this man? Alhamdulillah, you even remind them with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it's a negative way, right? You have stopped them from doing something, but I don't say anything, I just get in and sit down. So we live at a time where people don't care about company, where people want everything very fast and very quick. We want fast food, we want fast knowledge. I want to pick up a book or attend a lecture or something, and then I claim, one, that I have knowledge, two, that I am a student of this person. Nowadays, a lot of people say, I have studied with this person, and I've studied with this person, I've studied with this person. And when you verify this claim, you discover that it is fake claim. He possibly has met the person, as one of our friends said, possibly has had some tea with him. Or possibly he picked up the phone and he called him and he said, Ya Shaykhna, we want an ijazah from you. And he says, okay, Bismillah, you have ijazah. And then he says, this is my Shaykh, and he counts him amongst his mashayikh. They don't, and this is very, very, very bad, because people think that I can ascribe myself to someone just by him agreeing that I am ascribed to him. Possibly the Shaykh is doing it out of courtesy, out of willingness to spread knowledge, out of willingness to connect people to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But you ascribing yourself to this Shaykh in this way, you don't understand that you're losing a lot. What are you losing? Yes, your name might be associated with the person, but what you have lost is learning directly from the Shaykh and being in his company for long. There are things that you would not get unless you are in the company of people. That's why the Prophet ﷺ taught us that company itself is a qualification. There is a whole category in Islam called suhbah. And there is a whole community of people who have no other qualification, seriously, no other qualification except being what? Sahaba. That's their qualification. What do we know about them? Which school have they graduated from? What have they achieved in their life except suhbah, company of the Prophet ﷺ. Just by being in that company means you cannot think that you are close to them in any way or any shape. Why? Because they have been in a company of someone whom you cannot compete with them in. There is always a merit for the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim that no one can ever come close to, regardless of how righteous you are. Even Ahlul Bayt Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who are so honored by being the children of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, later on, when they speak about the Sahaba, they say, Sadatuna Sahaba, our masters, the Sahaba. They still consider them the Sada. Why? Because although you are connected to the Prophet ﷺ in lineage, but no way you can compare yourself to someone who has been in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. That people were so keen to be in the company of the breath of the Prophet ﷺ if they cannot be in the company of his person. So they started reading the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, repeating his words because they contain the breath of the Prophet ﷺ. Abu al-Abbas al-Azafi says, أهل الحديث هم أهل النبي إن لم يصحبوا نفسه أنفاسه صاحبه. The people of hadith are the people of the Prophet. If they don't accompany his person, they accompany his breath. So there is so much keenness in Islam to be in the company of righteous people, because what you get from their example, what you get from their day-to-day life, what you get from their adab, what you get by seeing and watching and experiencing is completely different from what you get when you open the book and read about them. And that's why one of our friends, Shaykh Ahmed Saad, says, as he repeats the words of earlier people, they say, الطبع سراق. الطبع سراق. Nature is a thief. Nature is a thief. You steal habits from your friends. You steal habits from the people you accompany, whether you like it or not, whether you mean it or not. When you sit with some people who speak foul or use foul language, after some time you realize that your language has become foul naturally. When you sit with some people who speak in a specific way, you will pick up some habits from them. When you sit in a company of a teacher, for instance, who uses certain words, you will realize that most of his students use pretty much the same words that he uses. And the more you love your teacher, the more you will absorb from him. The more you empty your heart from any other inclinations and you attach yourself to your teacher, the more you will get from him. And that's why it is very important. We live at a time where people have replaced the company of men with the company of books. The company of men with the company of the internet. The company of men with the company of Facebook. And the problem with that is that you cannot get anything from books. That you cannot experience anything with paper. This is an inanimate object. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not mean for knowledge to be transmitted through books. Never. If that was the case, the Quran would have come down and that's it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent many messengers without books, without scriptures. The number of messengers who came with books is very limited. Musa, Isa, Ibrahim, Dawood, Sheeth, even some of them we don't know anything about their scriptures. Who knows anything about the scriptures of Sheeth or the scriptures of Abraham or the scriptures or the Torah of Moses? Regardless of the Torah that we have nowadays. We don't believe except in the content that has been communicated to us by the Prophet ﷺ, by the Quran. So in fact, there has been so many messengers and prophets who came without what? Without any scriptures. Because we don't want a book without a person who manifests that book. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ قَدْ جَاءَكُمْ نور من ربكم وكتاب مبين. قد جاءكم من الله نور, as said in Surah Al-Ma'idah, قد جاءكم من الله نور وكتاب مبين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to you a light and a manifest book. He did not send a manifest book by itself. Although the book is manifest. The book is described as mubin. Means if you can read it, you will get something from it. So what is the point of getting a light next to the Kitabul Mubin, the manifest book, is that this book will not be manifested properly unless there is a human being who exemplifies this. That's why Sayyidah Aisha described the Prophet ﷺ as what? As Quran. كان خلقه القرآن. His character was a manifestation of the Quran. So we needed the physical Quran, the book, the written Quran, and the human Quran in order to emulate and in order to mimic and in order to follow. It's very important when we remember this at our time to remember the importance of spending time in the company of people. Actually, the Sahaba themselves, they were preferred to each other according to the length of their suhbah. How long have they been with the Prophet ﷺ? No one can compare himself with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. No one can compete with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Why? The first one, no one can compare himself with Ali ibn Abi Talib. No one can compare himself with Uthman ibn Affan. No one can compare himself with Umar ibn al-Khattab. No one can compare himself with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. No one can compare himself with those who have accepted Islam before Fath Makkah. And now we are coming to the days of Fath Makkah in Ramadan. No one can compare those who have given before Fath, before the opening of Makkah, to those who have given after. The Quran says, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا. None of those who have given after can compare themselves to those who have given before. Yes, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Yes, Allah grants both of them good status, higher status, but there is no comparison. There is no comparison between Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar ibn al-Khattab. Seriously, there is no comparison. Umar himself radiallahu anhu said, I wish وَدِدْتُ لَوْ أَنَّ أَعْمَالَ عُمَرَ. I wish that all the deeds of Umar are to be taken away in return of one thing. What is that one thing? He said, لِلَيْلَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. I wish that all my good deeds are taken away from me and I have the opportunity to spend one night. What is that night? The night of Hijrah when Sayyidina Abu Bakr was with the Prophet ﷺ in the cave. He said, I don't mind losing all my good deeds if I am to be that close to the Prophet ﷺ. Why? That night made Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and I'm going to repeat this, it made Abu Bakr as-Siddiq a Quran recited in Surah At-Tawbah. إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ, when he says to his friend, لَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. Don't be sad, Allah is with us. Who is صاحبه? Who is his companion? Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr, because of that night, he has become a Quran. Can you imagine that? That when you recite li sahibihi, that's 6 letters, you get reward. 10 rewards for lam, and 10 rewards for sad, and 10 rewards for ha, and 10 rewards for alif, and 10 rewards for ba, 10 rewards for ha. The Prophet ﷺ said, من قرأ حرفا من القرآن أعطي به 10 حسنات. Whoever recites 1 letter from the Quran, he will be given 10 good deeds for it. 10 rewards for it. لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف. I don't say ألف لام ميم is 1 letter. ولكن ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف. So we have لصاحبه here, his companion, that is 6 letters. So 60 rewards. Who is صاحبه? Abu Bakr. It has made Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd radiallahu ta'ala an. Zayd ibn Haritha, afwan. Zayd ibn Haritha, the one who, the adopted son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who later on Islam invalidated adoption and he was married to Zainab bint Jahsh and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her. It made Zayd radiallahu ta'ala an what? A story in the Quran. So people recite the story. فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجًا. I can mention him by name. It made Suhaib ibn Sinan al-Rumi radiallahu ta'ala an a story in the Quran when he was traveling from Mecca to Medina. And the mushrikeen followed him. And then he told them, you go to my house, take all my money, it is buried underneath the threshold, take all of it and let me go. And then the Quran came down telling us about him. It made a dog, a Quran. When you say kalb, you get 30 rewards for mentioning that dog. Because of what? Because of his company of the people of the cave 309 years. It made a donkey, a Quran, because of his company of Uzair. What is this? That's suhbah. Be in the company of people. Even if you are not a proper student of knowledge, you will get. One of the mashayikh in Egypt, who became a reference of knowledge in Aqidah. This man was an owner of donkeys. He was a donkey owner. We call him Hammar in Arabic. Hammar means a person who owns himars, like donkeys. In the days, last century, there was no transportation in Cairo. But in like what we know now as bus stations, right? In those days there were centers where there are people who own donkeys, so they go and stand with their donkeys there. And if someone arrives from his village and he wants to go somewhere, he can't walk all that distance, so he will hire a donkey. So you pay the donkey owner, and he will take you with his donkey. Obviously, he's not going to give you his donkey. He will take you with his donkey, right, to whatever destination you want to go to. And some of these people would know a specific donkey owner, so they kind of contract him. So if you commute daily to a specific place, you will know a specific donkey owner, and you give him money, and you say to him, okay, I pay you monthly or yearly, and you take me every day for this. And that was like a daily job. And a lot of people prefer this because that means they have a stable job every day. Like a lot of taxi owners in Cairo nowadays, especially like at school times, some families they want to send their kids by taxis, so they hire a specific taxi owner and say every day 7:30 you come and take the kids to school. So half an hour job, and then half an hour in the evening, and he has a salary from that family every month. And then the rest of the day he's free to do whatever he wants. Anyway, the donkey owner happened to carry a man called Shaykh Muhammad al-Fadali. Shaykh Muhammad al-Fadali was one of the great scholars of Aqidah in Egypt. He has a book called Murshid al-Awam. Murshid al-Anam ila Aqidat al-Awam. It's different from Aqidat al-Awam known in Yemen as Ahmed Abu al-Fawz al-Marzuq. His Aqidat al-Awam. It's called Murshid al-Anam ila Aqidat al-Awam, which is a simple book containing the essentials of Islam. Shaykh Muhammad al-Fadali al-Azhari rahimahullah ta'ala. Shafi'i fiqh. Anyway, Shaykh Muhammad al-Fadali used to commute to Al-Azhar Masjid, and he used to live in a place called Giza. And every day he will come from his house, go to the place where the donkeys are, ride the donkey with that specific donkey owner, and he would take him to the Al-Azhar. And then after he finishes his classes, he will come, pick him up, take him back to the place. That continued, let's say, for 30, 40 years. Same donkey owner, same person. Then after 30, 40 years, this donkey owner became a scholar himself. Why? Because the Shaykh used to carry his books with him, and he's revising while he is taking the journey every day. And this man is just listening. Just listening. Listening to what the Shaykh is saying, possibly willingly or unwillingly. He does want to learn or he doesn't want to learn. But he's hearing the same thing every day. He's hearing the same thing every day. Possibly the Shaykh is reading pretty much the same book or different books but the same information. So after some time, when the Shaykh passed away, they wanted someone to replace the Shaykh in his dars. They couldn't find any of his students. All his students were not as good as this donkey owner. So they got this man to teach that subject only. And this man, by the way, could not read or write. He could not read or write because he never learned how to read or write. But the amount of information in his company of the Shaykh, what has made him a Shaykh? His donkey. Had he not have a donkey, he wouldn't have known the Shaykh, and he wouldn't have spent so much time in the company of the Shaykh. And we have loads and loads and loads and loads of examples of things like this. I know of a person who was a shoemaker of a specific Shaykh. And after the Shaykh, he used to give fatwa. He said, every time I go to the Shaykh, I ask him and he's reading. And he used to go every day, almost every day to the Shaykh to show him some new shoes and say, Shaykh, would you like this? Would you like that? Some tailors of the Mashayikh as well. Some tailors of the Mashayikh used to do that. And by the way, this is not strange. You tell me, brothers and sisters, some famous Sahaba who are known for knowledge, who were they? The Khuddam of the Prophet ﷺ. Who was Anas ibn Malik? 20 years in the service of the Prophet ﷺ, 10 years in the service of the Prophet ﷺ while he was at the age of 10. Right? 10 years in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. After 10 years, he has become Anas ibn Malik. In fact, I noticed and I kind of traced most of the ahadith that speak about the domestic life of the Prophet ﷺ are either narrated by As-Sayyidah Aisha or the wives of the Prophet ﷺ or Anas. No one else. No one else. Because no one has spent so much company in the Prophet ﷺ's company at home more than Anas ibn Malik. So had it not been for this suhbah, we wouldn't have known about our Messenger ﷺ. In fact, the other Sahaba who did jobs for the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. What was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's job? Do you know what was the job of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? حامل نعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He used to carry the shoes of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Sayyid Abdul Hayy al-Kittani rahimahullah, who died in 1382, one of the great muhaddithin of Morocco, Abdul Hayy ibn Abdul Kabir al-Kittani rahimahullah, had a book called At-Taratib al-Idariyya, which is a book that discovers and explores the jobs that existed at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. At the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, there was loads of jobs that people nowadays are unaware of. There was a man called Zayd as-Sarraj. His job was to lighten the streets of Medina. They used to make light in the streets to make the streets of Medina lightened at night. And that man's job was to do that. There was a person who used to carry the stick of the Prophet ﷺ. There was a person who used to carry the mug or the bowl or the drinking cup of the Prophet ﷺ. Someone looking after the na'alain of the Prophet ﷺ. Someone looking after timing of the Prophet ﷺ, who would wake him up for qiyam. He would wake him up for fajr. He would wake him up afterwards. Someone, katimus sir, the bearer of secrets, Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman. Someone who is looking after this, someone who is looking after that, someone is like, you can say, a spy. Ayn li-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He would go and explore. Someone checks if the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam camps in a place, he would check if the place is safe or not. Is there any scorpions, any snakes? And some people might say, why the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would subject someone to dangers? No, that person was an expert in dealing with snakes and scorpions. Just like nowadays when we go to the desert, we need a local Bedouin. If he finds a scorpion, you will be terrified. But if he finds a scorpion, he will deal with him. Some people in the desert, they eat scorpions. They are seriously, like they have been living with them, so much, like that the scorpions are terrified of them. It's the other way around now. So these people, they have experience. So the Prophet ﷺ chose these individuals. Some people were dedicated for knowledge. Some people were dedicated. This is suhbah. And I want to conclude actually with the story of one of the great Sahaba Radwanullahi alayhim, who's an Egyptian Sahab, Sayyidina Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhani. And Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentions in Husn al-Muhadara, which is a book on the merits of Cairo and Egypt, a whole chapter which was made into a book later on called Darru al-Sahaba fi man nazala Misra min al-Sahaba. It's on the names of the Sahaba who lived and died in Egypt, 354 Sahabis. One of them is Sayyidina Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhani. Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhani is a beautiful experience of empowerment. Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhani came with his people from the tribe of Juhayna to learn and to accept Islam with the Prophet ﷺ. And because he was kind of very simple-minded person, he's not very intelligent or anything. His companions, his friends, said to him, there was 12 of them. His friends said to him, why do you have to come with us to Medina? Who's going to look after the camels? You stay here outside Medina, look after the camels, because they can't take the camels inside Medina. How are they going to graze them? So they have to be kept outside in the outskirts. So they need to be looked after, they need to be grazed and things. So they said to him, you stay with the camels, we will go and we'll tell the Prophet ﷺ that you want to accept Islam, and he will accept your pledge without you having to be present. So he agreed at the beginning. He said, okay, I will remain with the camels. And then 2-3 days later, he thought to himself, what a bad thing have I done to myself? These people are enjoying the company of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm enjoying the company of the camels. So he actually left the camels, and in some narrations he drove the camels to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. So all of a sudden they found like 40 camels, and with a man driving them in front of the masjid. And he came in. The Prophet ﷺ looked, who is this? And the other friends, they said to him, you left the camels and you came? He said, no, the camels are outside. So the Prophet ﷺ said, who is this? This is Ya Rasulullah. This is a man, simple-minded man, who sahibuna, he's our friend. We brought him with us, but we realized that he doesn't have to be here, so he'll stay in there. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, come, sit down. The Prophet ﷺ appreciated this man's zeal for the company. So what he did, right after when these people accepted Islam, they had to take their camels and go back to their tribe and teach them Islam. Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhani decided he's not returning. He's going to spend time in Medina, be in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. Coming from a very, very simple, like a very simple man, doesn't have knowledge or anything. The Prophet ﷺ used to take him while he's traveling, with him, just be in his company. So he narrates, he tells us himself, radiallahu ta'ala an, that in one of the travels, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, you hold the camel and I ride. So the Prophet ﷺ was riding, and Uqba ibn Amir was holding the rope and leading the camel. 5 miles or something, and the Prophet ﷺ got off the camel, and he said to him, now you ride and I lead. He said, no, this is impossible. He said, listen, you ride, I lead. So he led. The Prophet ﷺ led, and Uqba ibn Amir rode the camel. What is he teaching him? He's not just like honoring him as it is, but he's teaching him adab. He's teaching him adab with friends. That the best of people is the one who serves others. They say, Sayyidul Qawmi khadimuhum, or Khadimul Qawmi Sayyiduhum. Like the one who serves others is their master. Sometimes nowadays we think that we are too holy and too great to be in the service of others. And let people serve and let people carry and let people... No, this is not adab. Adab, greatness, is to humble yourself down to people and to be in the service of others. The essence of greatness is to be great inside you and to be so sure about your greatness that you go and serve others. But the one who is irritated, who is not genuinely great, he makes a fake greatness. So he makes this aura and sits down and wants people to be in his service. And he doesn't want to humble himself down. But if someone is really, genuinely a great person, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Gold is gold, whether it is in mud or it is in the jewelry shop. Diamond is diamond, whether people appreciate or depreciate it. When someone looks at the new moon and he says, oh, you know what, this is not a full moon. It's a full moon. Your eye cannot. قد تنكر العين ضوء الشمس من رمد وينكر الماء طعم الماء من سقم. Like if the eye is infected, it can deny the light of the sun. And if the mouth is infected, it can deny the sweetness of the water. It doesn't mean that the water is not sweet or that the sun is very small or unclear. It's a problem in your mouth. It's not a problem out there. So Uqba ibn Amir radiallahu anhu enjoyed the company of the Prophet ﷺ. Then the Prophet ﷺ, while he was riding, while Uqba was riding, now Uqba riding is not busy with anything, right? When he was leading, he's busy leading the camel. But while he was riding, who was leading? The Prophet ﷺ. So he's not busy, his mind is clear. The Prophet ﷺ was repeating Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas all the time. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ until the end. And then قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ repeatedly. Then, after some time, 2, 3, 4 hours, Uqba must have learned these 2 surahs. He's just listening to them continuously. And he has nothing else in his mind. He got off the camel and the Prophet ﷺ said, now I will sleep. When the time for Fajr comes, you wake me up. So he woke him up. And then he gave the Prophet ﷺ wudu. And then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, you lead. You lead. And read the 2 surahs that you heard. He's teaching him something. And then after they returned to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ used to bring him and make him sit down while he is judging between people. Listen to family problems, little problems here and there, to get experience of how to settle things between people. After some time, Uqba radiallahu ta'ala anhu was inspired to memorize the whole Quran. And he accumulated experience of how to judge between people. At the time of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, they tried to find a ruler for Egypt, a governor for Egypt. They found no one better than Uqba ibn Amr al-Juhani. Imagine this simple man became the governor of a big country. And he went to Egypt and they said, فَسَارَ فِيهِمْ بِسِيرَةٍ مَرْضِيَةٍ. When he lived in Egypt, he was a very just governor, a very nice man. وَكَانَ يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنِ وَيَأُمْ. He used to recite Quran and he used to lead people in Taraweeh in Masjid Amr ibn al-As. You see how suhbah, how company can transform people's life. That's why we need, inshallah ta'ala, that we accompany people of righteousness. We find someone who's righteous, someone whom we believe that he's righteous, and we stick to them. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not until we get what they have, but until they die. and then we move from one person to another. Imagine, I'm going to conclude with this, that Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi found the Prophet ﷺ only because of his suhbah. He came in the company of a priest, and he stayed with him until his death, and he moved from him to another priest who stayed with him until his death, and then a third priest, until he told him, you go to the Prophet. This is the time of the Prophet of the end of time. What has delivered Salman to the Prophet ﷺ is suhbah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the suhbah of the righteous people. اللهم إنا نسألك أن ترزقنا صحبة الصالحين وأن ترضي قلوبهم الشريفة علينا. اللهم ارزقنا صحبة المصطفى وآله أهل الوفاء. ارفعنا إلى مقامات الشرفاء، واسقنا من كأس حمي الصفا. اللهم إنا نسألك من رحمتك الواسعة وبركتك الجامعة وفضلك الواسع الهامع الجامع يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم إنا نسألك هدى وتقى وعفافا وغنى، نسألك العافية من كل بلية. اللهم لا تجعل عيشنا كدا، ولا تجعل دعاءنا ردا، ولا تجعلنا لغيرك عبدا، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا لسواك ودا. إنا لا نقول لك ضدا ولا شريكا ولا ندا. اللهم كن لنا ولا تكن علينا، ولا تكلنا طرفة إلينا، واجمع لنا ما بين علم وعمل، واصرف إلى دار البقاء منا الأمل، واختر لنا في سائر الأقوال، واخر لنا في سائر الأفعال. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم.